In this video, we'll get you up to date on everything you need to know for the 2022 NBA draft, give you a few locks, a few sleepers, a few busts, and a few bold predictions. I'm Alan Seslowsky, of course, with RotoWire's NBA draft expert, Nick Whalen. What are the 2 or 3 main storylines that we need to know heading into the 22 draft?
I think as of right now, one of the biggest storylines is we still have no idea who's going to be the number 1 pick. Really throughout the entire college basketball season and throughout the draft process, which really has been overshadowed by the NBA Finals. In some order, Jabari Smith from Auburn, Paolo Banchero from Duke, and Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga as the consensus top 3, but we just don't know what order they're going to go in. Jabari Smith has been kind of the proverbial favorite. He's been the betting favorite over the last couple of months, but Chet Holmgren is slowly chipping away at that gap when you look at the odds. And I think a lot of people believe that Jabari Smith is the safest pick. He's the guy that has the highest floor, but if you're shooting for the moon and you're looking at it for a guy who could potentially be a top 5 player in the NBA 5 or 6 years from now, I think a lot of people would say that's probably Chet Holmgren.
Is there a chance that someone can trade up and take the number 1 pick? Would Orlando want to trade back since there is no clear number 1?
That's another big question. I don't think there's really an obvious trade on the board in this draft, and that's because a lot of the teams picking at the top of the board are all in rebuilds. So there's not necessarily, one team that is looking to move out of one of the top picks and get a win now asset. They're all kind of trying to build for the future. But if there's one team that has the war chest of assets to potentially move up from number 2 to number 1, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Think of all the trades that they've made over these last 2 or 3 years. They have all those Clippers picks. I mean, they can basically go get whatever pick that they want. It's going to cost them. If they want to move up from 2 to 1 in this draft to get, say, Chet Holmgren, that seems like a player that OKC would try to target. Orlando's going to drive a hard bargain. Maybe they want Chet Holmgren. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But, we're talking multiple first-round picks, maybe future swaps. I could see it being OKC just because they're the team that has those assets. And they have a GM who's proven that he's going to get his guy.
If you were the Orlando Magic, who would you take?
I would take Chet Holmgren. I like Jabari Smith. I like Paolo Banchero. I actually like a lot of the guys even in the 4 through 8 range in this draft. But I'm the Orlando Magic. I don't have a star. Right? I don't have Cade Cunningham. I'm not the Detroit Pistons. I don't even have a Jalen Green type of player. I have a lot of good but not great young assets. I'm still looking for that A++ type of prospect. And as much as I like Jabari Smith, as much as he would probably help the Orlando Magic the most in the short term, I'm trying to win the title in 2028. I'm not trying to win the title in 2023 or 2024. And yes, Chet Holmgren has some significant downside, but I don't think it's an argument. He has the highest long-term upside of that top 3.
Of the players expected to go in the lottery, let's call it just the top 10 for now, who is the player that scares you the most? The one that could maybe be a bust?
That's a good question. I really don't feel like there are a lot of mysteries or extreme risks at the top of this draft. And a lot of it is, there's not these like international mystery players. Think like Killian Hayes from a couple years ago, where until like a month before the draft, unless you're really in the weeds, you probably didn't know a whole lot about Killian Hayes. And, I don't even know if the Pistons knew a whole lot about him before they drafted him. And teams are just getting smarter at identifying guys that are going to be good in the NBA. We're kind of moving past the phase of the draft where guys like Frank Kaminsky and Jahlil Okafor can be top 10 picks. That doesn't really happen anymore. I think teams are a lot smarter than they used to be. So I don't really see any guys where I think, man, he's going to really struggle in the NBA. But, it could be someone like a Keegan Murray. It could be Jaden Ivey, guys who were really good in college. But, you wonder, how does that translate to the NBA? To me, it's all about expectations. If you're drafting a guy like, say, Keegan Murray, I think he has a really high floor. But if you're taking him at maybe number 4 overall and you're saying, all right, go be the second best player on a title team, does he have that in him? I'm not really sure. When you look a little bit further down in terms of top 10 candidates, someone like Dyson Daniels comes to mind. Really, really skilled as a defensive player, developing offensive game. The overall field goal percentage in the G League was okay, but he shot like 25% from 3 on a decent amount of volume. Any kind of guard who's coming into the NBA with a shot that needs like full on, repairing, that's always a concern for me. And then one other guy that I'll mention quickly, Alan, Jalen Duren, maybe the highest risk, highest reward player in this entire draft. Extremely athletic big man, super high ceiling, has the body of 21-year-old Dwight Howard already. But, a lot of questions about, his switchability on defense. Can he be more than a rim protector? And on offense, can he do anything outside of the paint?
It's so cliche to say who's the next Giannis, but really what I mean is who's the player that's going in pick 15 to the end of the draft that really could make an impact in the NBA in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you. I don't think that there's a Giannis 2.0 in this draft, but I had a few guys that I really like that we'll probably see come off the board either as early as the late lottery or maybe later in round one. Malaki Branham out of Ohio State is one. He's been a late riser, played really well at the end of the season for the Buckeyes. He could sneak into the end of the lottery, so I don't know if it's really fair to call him a super sleeper by any means. Patrick Baldwin, he went to UW Milwaukee, right in my backyard here. Got hurt, had kind of a disastrous freshman year at UWM. His dad was the coach there. That's why he ended up at a mid-major. But at one point, he was the #1 player in this star-studded high school class. And his star has certainly fallen a little bit over the last 6 months or so, but he could shoot the lights out, doesn't have a ton of foot speed, doesn't project as like a #1 scorer in the NBA, but he's a really, really good shooter with really good size. And I think teams are now probably too far down on Patrick Baldwin, who still has a lot of talent. The other guy I would highlight, and we might see his name called in the second round, Bryce Mcgowens out in Nebraska. As a Big Ten guy, a Badger fan, I watched a lot of Bryce Mcgowens last season. Not getting a ton of hype coming out of Nebraska, not exactly a basketball factory there, but I thought he did a lot of good things as a freshman. I think he made the right call coming out.
Who's the best shooter in this draft?
I mean, it's a very good shooting draft. I think AJ Griffin out of Duke maybe has the highest upside as a shooter. He was 40% plus as a freshman at Duke last season, did get overshadowed a little bit.
There's always a player in the second round that ends up being, how did he fall this far?
I mean, Trevor Keels out of Duke, we could see him fall to the second round. I do think there's a decent chance he sneaks into the back half of round one, but he's a guy that his highs at Duke were really high. His lows were pretty low. Kind of that like football player who's playing basketball type of body. He looks even bigger than he measures in at. But he's the type of guy that if he puts it together defensively, I think could have a really long career in the NBA.
Let's go over a couple prop bets for the NBA draft now. All right, what's your favorite one that you have with high confidence relative to the value that you're getting on that draft prop?
You could get AJ Griffin to go in the top 10 at -115. I also think he has a really, really good shot to be selected somewhere between picks 7 and 10. And then if you're looking for a little more value, you could get Ben Mathurin to go 5th overall specifically. The odds indicate that is relatively unlikely, but I think that is a situation that you could see playing out with Detroit at 5. And then you could get Malaki Branham. You could get him to go all the way up into the top 10 at 8-1. And that number indicates that he's really on the rise here as the draft approaches.
Well, that's my kind of bet, a pizza bet, where I bet a little and I win a lot. It's bold prediction time.
With my professional reputation on the line, I don't think these are going to happen. But if you're looking for a bold prediction, let's say the Houston Rockets get crazy and take Shaedon Sharpe at number 3. And another one I'll throw at you, Jeremy Sohan out of Baylor. I think he can make it up into the top 5.
Will a superstar player, veteran player, be traded on draft night?
Rudy Gobert might be that guy. And maybe the Hawks being that team willing to do like a 3-for-1 kind of consolidation type of trade. That seems to be in the air. I mean, of course, Donovan Mitchell's name is going to be thrown around, but I think it's far more likely that we see someone who's not a star, but is, an above average name, someone like a Jeremy Grant.
If you like videos like this, consider hitting the like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want to get notified every time we put up a new video. If you want to get behind RotoWire's paywall for free for 2 days, you can do so right now. Get all of our premium podcasts, articles, rankings. Nick has posted his 2023 basketball rankings. They're already up. Our fantasy football rankings are up. And of course, our top prospects for fantasy baseball. You can go to rotowire.com/try.